During the referendum campaign, a 22-year-old art student, Darren Grimes, set up a campaigning organisation, Believe, which raised over £675,000 to spend on getting out its message. After the vote, the Electoral Commission was sued for its conduct of the referendum by a Remain organisation, the Good Law Project, which asserted that Believe had never existed. The Electoral Commission fined Grimes £20,000 for alleged expenses spending offences. Grimes raised money for an appeal through crowdfunding, and in 2019, the Central London County Court ordered all the charges to be withdrawn and the Commission to pay his legal costs. Amongst other things, Judge Dite found that the Electoral Commission did not understand the law that it exists to uphold. The Commission now has a new chairman, Mr. John Pullinger, and it's to be hoped that he doesn't make his personal political views known as a predecessor, Sir John Holmes, did when he regretted the result of the referendum. Well, Mr. Pullinger declined an invitation to appear on this programme tonight, but Darren Grimes joins me now. Hello, Darren. Good evening. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Michael. It's absolutely great to be with you.
Mr. Pullinger, the new chairman, says that the Commission has apologised to you for what happened. What form did that apology take?
I'm afraid I haven't actually had an apology from the Electoral Commission. Mr. Pullinger himself has issued an unprecedented, basically saying that I was put through, in not so many words, saying I was put through hell. You know, 3 investigations into me, of course, the court case that you just mentioned, the referral to the police, and by this regulator who, as you mentioned there, according to one of the highest judges in the land, and especially in that particular area, didn't understand the law that it actually exists to uphold. So the Telegraph reported that they were unprecedented comments by Mr. Pullinger, that apology. And I would actually appreciate, far from, I don't want them to grovel to me, Michael, I would just like to know that this isn't going to happen to anyone again, because I think it's got some pretty chilling effects on democracy itself in this country.
How did you get into all this? I mean, a 22-year-old art student as you were when all this began, I think. What were you doing setting up an organisation to campaign during the referendum? Was this just because of the strength of your personal feeling?
Yes, well, I set up the campaign in December of 2015, and I just felt that there wasn't, I was a Liberal Democrat activist in early 2015, and I thought there wasn't going to be a Liberal argument that would appeal to younger people for the Leave side. So I set up Believe. And you're right, it was just, I felt really quite passionate about it at that point. And I was naive enough to believe that that's, you know, given our democracy is entirely fueled by volunteer participation, that actually this was all going to be absolutely fine, Michael, and that there wouldn't be the next 4 years of my life completely dominated by legal rigmarole and what I would deem to be a regulator that has lost the trust of at least 52% of the electorate, Michael. So yes, it was entirely down to my own personal, I guess, fervour to get out the vote for Leave.
You mentioned that you were interviewed by the police. Was that as a result of a reference to the police from the Electoral Commission, or did it arrive by some other route?
Yes, so I'll never ever forget actually the pips of it was a different breakfast radio programme, a competitor of this august radio station, Michael, I must say. I won't name them now, but the pips of this this programme went off. I just said it there, oh dear.
You did, yes.
You know, the do, and my life changed forever from that moment. I woke up and I thought, oh my God, and it had announced that Darren Grimes has been referred to the Metropolitan Police and fined the Electoral Commission's maximum fine, the maximum penalty that they can impose on someone. Now, my life from then, as I say, it changed beyond all recognition. You know, I realised I put up a green screen in my room, Michael, and I filmed a crowdfunding video. And I had people from the other side of the argument, because obviously we were so separated between Leave and Remain at this point. It was entirely, you're either on that side of the fence or the other. So anyone that voted Brexit believed that I had been entirely hard done by, which of course a court of law found. And the Remain side of the argument said, oh, he must be a crook, you know, let's get him. And I set up this and recorded this crowdfunding video in my bedroom. And people were saying this looks so professional. He must have a lot of money behind him. And I hadn't, Michael. I did that all myself with a mate holding the camera in my bedroom. And I managed to raise almost, you're talking well into £90,000 to fight this challenge. And I wouldn't have been able to fight it without the support of over 2,000 people, average donation of 30 quid. And I took them on and I won eventually. But yes, I hadn't been told that the Electoral Commission had made that decision before I heard it on the radio. I hadn't had time to tell my mum, who was 300 miles away in County Durham. I was in London at the time. And actually, what I will say is that I wish it had been the police that dealt with it all along, because with the police, I had a much faster response time. I felt like they actually knew what they were talking about, Michael. I actually felt confident that it wasn't going to be a decision that was based around Remain campaigners with wealthy pockets and speaking legalese in nice suits, saying jump, and the Electoral Commission asking how high. I had confidence, I had trust in the police in a way in which I don't for the Electoral Commission, who interviewed me under caution, as indeed the police did. But the Electoral Commission, Michael, amazingly, astonishingly, lost the transcript of the interview that they took with me. And that was during the second investigation. There were three, as I say. And that, to me, goes to the very heart of the problem here, is that, I actually welcome, and we might get onto that, but the report by the Committee of Standards in Public Life, which recommends a 12-month limit, a cut-off for starting investigations into campaign offences, because I really don't think it's fair if we consider we are a country which I think has a fair justice system. We cannot have someone's life drag on for 4 months with 3 bites of the cherry by the regulator that then ends up in a police investigation that says there's nothing to see here, and a court case that says the regulator got it wrong in fact and law. It's just astonishing, Michael.
Darren Grimes, we're coming towards the end of our time, inevitably. Do you have any idea what it cost to bring this action against you?
Well, they had to pay my costs, and of course, so that you're talking there, there were conditional fee arrangements, so you're talking hundreds of thousands by the time the solicitors managed to get their full fees and not their conditional fees, which was nice of them to do. But then, of course, there were the Commission's own costs. The Commission's had the Treasury Devil, Sir James Eadie, and he cost, I wouldn't like to say, Michael, it's probably enough to make me blush, put it that way. And you're talking vast sums of cash on the Vote Leave challenge as well. Vast sums of cash on things like the Craig McKinley challenge, the Leave.eu challenge. Just extraordinary sums of taxpayer money being spent by a quango that asked for prosecution powers. And the government have said they're not going to get them. And I say, thank God for that, actually, because I think there's no doubt in my mind that there would be new travesties of justice, and actually the undermining of democracy. So I say the government have got this absolutely right. I think it's a shame that the Electoral Commission wouldn't come on and talk to you tonight, Michael, because I do think actually it's a conversation worth having, and I really do hope that the Electoral Commission's new chairman does actually put in change the robust response I think that's needed after such failure.
It's popular these days to talk about the lived experience. What's been your lived experience of this?
My lived experience of this, I would just go back to, I'm not the same resilient, carefree, nonchalant lad from a County Durham council estate that I was. Whacked with a maximum fine in a police investigation, it changes you. I'm not afraid to say that I earlier this year had a mental breakdown, and I think actually it was in part because of years and years of this stuff and the build-up of all of it, really, the pressure that it places on people. I had the press, I couldn't even go to my family home at one point because the press were coming there, and they were hounding my mother and my brother, who was at school at the time, being followed by reporters questioning them. My mum said, she would sell her ex-council house in order to cover my legal costs. That has a real toll on a person, and I can't really put that into words. I'm not as eloquent as you are, Michael. And I really think it simply cannot be allowed to happen again when a regulator can get it so wrong that a court of law basically laughs in the face of the so-called guardians of our democracy. And whilst the people that made these decisions, that Bob Posner and Louise Edwards, two top cheeses now at the Electoral Commission, they got promotions within the quango. So far from it being reprimanded for losing taxpayer cash in the hundreds of thousands of pounds area that it found itself, I find it really difficult to think that this would have happened. This sort of malpractice, in my view, would have been allowed to take place in the private sector. You certainly wouldn't get the rewards for failure that I think we find in this case, Michael.
Darren Grimes, thank you for joining me this evening and talking about your experiences with the Electoral Commission.